This is the story of our trebuchet. To much surprise, we did not build this dashing piece of equipment at the snap of a finger, but through weeks of planning, building, and rebuilding. Initially, our design consisted of a 0.8 by 0.4 meter base, along with a 0.6 meter pivot point, a 0.8 meter throwing arm, and a 0.8 meter sling. This of course changed to our final design, for which we increased many of the trebuchet's dimensions. The base was now 0.9 by 0.6 meters, along with a 0.8 meter pivot point, a 1.2 meter throwing arm, and a 0.8 meter sling. Fortunately for us, we already had existing wood and PVC pipe, so we could cut down costs for the project. Overall, we had to spend about $30 total for our trebuchet. I'd like to take a moment now to confess that none of us actually knew what a trebuchet was a couple of weeks ago, so we had to do a lot of research online to figure out how it worked. Online, we found optimal dimensions for trebuchets such as a throwing arm ratio of 4:1, which we implemented into our design. We also found that the sling length should be about 80% of the throwing arm. Mr. Boyarsky also was helpful for encouraging us to use a light material for the throwing arm so that it would throw farther with less counterweight. Our materials consisted of wood, PVC pipe, rubber tubing, a basket for the counterweight, screws, and metal corner pieces. In order to piece together our trebuchet, we used a manual saw to cut the wood and a drill to screw the materials together. Prepping the wood to build the trebuchet was really easy because we all knew how to cut wood. Oh, Debbie, cut the wood! Cut the wood!
I am cutting the wood.
No, we actually learned how to cut the wood while I stood there and took pictures of myself. After prepping the wood, we constructed the base, which is 0.9 meters by 0.6 meters. Then we attached the pivot piece, which was 0.8 meters tall. And then we put support pieces for the pivot. Next, we put in the axle as well as the throwing arm and attached the counterweight to the end of the throwing arm. Notice that there are two eye hooks located on the track so that the throwing arm may be attached to it for the trigger mechanism. Our last step would be to attach the rubber tubing around the throwing arm so that it doesn't move side to side when launching. Modifications we made to the counterweight include the sling, which we lengthened in order to increase the distance the trebuchet would throw the golf ball, as well as the bucket used to hold the counterweight, which we switched to a metal bucket so that it would hold more weight.
Okay, so we're about to start collecting data.
We encountered many problems in testing, such as the inconsistency of the angle of our launches. So we used this slow motion video to find out that the sling was releasing the golf ball later than it should be. After hours of freaking out and frustration, we would eventually get the sling to launch the golf ball at an acceptable angle.
Okay, test launch number 2 for 2.5 pounds. This is gonna be exciting. Well, are you gonna go? Film it, okay? That was mediocre.
Oh, that was a really bad film. I also didn't watch where it landed.
It went last, what the heck? Please go. 10.1 or 2.
Our data produced a linear graph with a slope of 1.978 meters per pound, which means for every pound of counterweight added, our trebuchet would launch the golf ball 1.978 meters, and a y-intercept of 1.220 meters, which means that if no counterweight was added, that our trebuchet would launch the golf ball 1.22 meters. Using the equation we found during testing, we discovered that we would need 5.45 pounds in order to reach the target at a distance of 12 meters. That ended up about 90 centimeters away from the target, so we ended up just adjusting the sling and the trap for the second try. And it worked. The golf ball did not hit the target, but it ended up super close to the target, and we are very pleased with the results because it was pretty accurate. Although it was frustrating, it ended up being a lot of fun, and now we know how to build stuff.